Okay, we're holding towards the end of Perek Hey, chapter 5 of Kohelet, and I think we'll be able to finish the Perek. There are quite a few Pesukim remaining, but they're all related. It's pretty much all the same topic. One of the favorite topics of Shlomo Melech, talking about the wealthy, how the wealthy make so many mistakes. You know, it is very tempting. It is a big nisayon, as we've explained in the past, a very, very big challenge for those who are very wealthy, how to conduct themselves, what to do with their money. They may become arrogant. Their conduct may change with those who used to be their friends are no longer their friends once they've made money. Many things happen to the wealthy. One of those things that happen to those who are wealthy is that the more money you have, the more worries you have. As the rabbis tells in Pirkei Avot, marbe nechasim, marbe deagot. So in some ways it's an advantage. One can benefit greatly from having the means to accomplish a lot. On the other hand, it has its pitfalls. It has its problems. It's not smooth sailing for all those who have money. And that's what he's going to talk about in the remaining Pesukim of chapter 5. Because, as we've explained in the past, Shlomo Melech, being an observer, has noticed what makes people fail in life. And we're not here talking about failing in marriage per se, we're talking about in general. We all have a mission to accomplish. Life is short, but there are a lot of distractions. And when people are distracted, they cannot focus properly on what they need to do and what is a priority in their life. What is important? Where should I invest most of my time and effort? What really matters? What doesn't really matter? And only by having a good understanding of the mechanisms of the world, which we never could have a very, very thorough understanding, because we're limited in how much we can know and how much we can see in the short amount of time that we're here. Nonetheless, by learning, one can greatly increase his chances of, I call it, survival. Not only survival in a physical sense, which many people do, even if they don't know a lot, but survival in a spiritual sense, that we accomplish what we're set out to accomplish. But it's not easy. It's not easy because there are many forces out there competing for our attention. So the one who has money, last week we spoke about how the desire for it, the pursuit of it, is almost unending. It's not like food. Food, you fill yourself up, you like food, you enjoy food. You can't eat after a while. You're just too full. Unless the individual has a sickness that he goes to the restroom and vomits what he just ate so he can eat more. I've heard some people do that. We're not talking about that. Most of us, when we eat, we are satiated, we're full, and even though we've had our best meal, we can't continue to eat. Unless it's an ice cream or something, something light, but otherwise we can't eat. There's a limit. Money, there's no limit. You've made $10 million, you're going to want more. Or have kesef lo yizbach kesef. That's what we left off last week in describing this yetzer hara, this particular weakness that, of course, is led or fueled by the yetzer hara, the evil inclination. So the next pasuk says as follows: Birvot hatova rabu ochleha, u'ma kishron lebealea ki im reot einav. Birvot hatova means the more tova, the more benefit you have, the more money you accumulate. Rabu ochleha, you will have many people who will come after you to want to have a share of it. So he already points out one of the problems with those who have lots of money is all of a sudden everybody wants to be your friend. Everybody wants to marry into you, family, everybody wants to share the pie. So birvot hatova, the more one has, he's already a magnet to all kinds of people who want to have a part of it. Rabu ochleha, who want to eat from it. What is he telling us? He's going to tell us how silly it is to accumulate money. In other words, obviously if your goal is very specific, you want to have so much so that you can, live comfortable, that's different. Most of us want to have that. But here he's going to be describing an individual that's all he's dreaming about, is to be very, very wealthy, to have lots of money. And that's going to attract others who are going to want to have a share. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily friends. It could even mean thieves who are going to find out about him. troublemakers. It's not just people who want to befriend him and somehow share his wealth in a good, positive way. We're talking about elements that are not welcome. We're going to find out somehow. They're going to find out about his address. And he's going to have additional worries. But then he tells us the bad news is not just the people who are going to want to have a share of it. What will he gain, this individual, of accumulating and continuously accumulating money? In the end, the majority of wealthy people, we're talking about very wealthy people, all they do with the money is see it with their eyes. They never got to enjoy it. In the majority of cases, people who have accumulated millions of dollars never got to enjoy all the millions they made. So he says, why? Why work so hard? What will the owner of all this money gain from having accumulated and of course spent so much energy to acquire it, except for seeing it with his eyes, putting it in his bank account, savings, mutual funds, or whatever. But to enjoy it, to actually spend it, that he may never have an opportunity to. The majority of people don't. Another point that he's basically telling us is that since life is short, how much do you get to use? I mean, in the end, how much do you really need? You know, it's like building a new home. I've seen homes where the man put in 17 bathrooms. What do you need so many bathrooms for? One for breakfast, lunch, dinner, I mean, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Do you really need that many? I mean, how many? It's ridiculous.
Sickness.
Huh?
Sickness.
No, not necessarily a sickness. It could be that, I mean, maybe, I don't know, he wants to have one wherever he goes. Who
They
knows?
have 5
Guests.
cars.
5 cars, exactly. So in other words, how much do you really have a need for all that money? In other words, what are you going to do with all of it? As opposed to what? What's the point here? He's always making 2 points. He's always comparing. As opposed to Avodat Hashem, the service of Hashem, the more you have, obviously the more you will take with you. That is, it is neto, completely for Olam Haba. You don't leave it behind. That which one has acquired, how much tzedakah he has given, how many times he answered amen, how many times he made a beracha, a blessing. Any mitzvot, all of these accomplishments are actually in a safe that no one can have access to. It's in a safe deposit box upstairs, and that is for his credit, completely his credit, and it will not be taken away from him. Whether it's a little or a lot makes no difference. A person only accomplished a little in mitzvot. Regardless, it's all net savings. In other words, it's all his to keep. That has value. The money does not have value anymore after we leave this world. So in other words, people have a problem in not really evaluating what's truly important. And it's incredible. You know, we would like to know which is the better investment. We go to a financial advisor to consult sometimes. What do you think? Today you're not getting even 1% for your money in the bank. It's 0.10 or less. What should you do with your money? People are going all over the place trying to see, especially if they have, where should they invest it? Should they buy real estate? Should they buy in Israel? People are concerned about that. But wait a minute, is that really the most important question? Well, obviously that's all they know about. Yeah.
Doesn't the Chavetz Chaim give a formula? A third in real estate, a third in cash, a third in business?
No, that's the Gemara. The Gemara. Not the Chavetz. The Gemara says that one should diversify his money, not put all your eggs in one basket, as they say in English. So 1/3 in real estate, 1/3 in a business, and 1/3 in cash.
And you'll never go broke.
What's that?
And you'll never go.
No. That's just plain advice on how to distribute your money. Because if people put it all in one basket, right, and something happens to real estate, something happens to the business, then you're going to be very, very sad and depressed about it. Now, if your bitachon is so strong that you know everything's mishamayim anyway, then of course it won't affect you. But that advice is for the average person who is affected by the downfalls of the economy. He understands that this is going to be a major loss for him, and he doesn't think about the bigger picture that Hashem provides for us with parnasah, and He'll take care of us one way or another.
But does that apply to the average person or the one person?
No. It's always good advice, because you don't want to deal with a situation where all the money is gone. All of a sudden, now what? Now, of course, if you have faith in God, you say to yourself, well, it was meant to be. Obviously it's meant, because nothing happens by chance. But most people will not react that way. Most people will say, well, why did I put all my money in this thing? They're not going to think for a moment that Hashem, of course, is responsible for it, and had it not been coming to him, he would have somehow given him the idea of putting it into something else. Most people are not going to think that way. They're going to react very, very negatively, upset at themselves, upset at the person who advised them to do so. So therefore, divide it up into 3. In this way, if anything is supposed to happen, it will happen in one area and not in all 3 areas.
So it's not a formula for success, it's rather a safeguard.
Right. Yeah. It's not. So success has to do with mazal. If a person has mazal, he can put it into one basket. You know what mazal is? Mazal is this guy buys matchsticks. Okay? Well, right? And all of a sudden, a week later, somebody says, that's exactly what I need. I'm willing to pay any money for it. So he bought it, for, I don't know, $1,000 a ton, let's say, and he sold it for $10,000 a ton. Give you an example. That's mazal. It has nothing to do with success, nothing to do with a PhD. So Kohelet is always going to be making a difference between what's really important in life and what's not important. He says, what will come out of it? How much will you enjoy of it? Nothing will be taken with us. And Avodat Hashem, even if it's a little, is worth a lot more. Next pasuk. מתוקה שנת העובד עם מעט ועם הרבה, יוכל, והשבע לעשיר, איננו מניח לו לישון. Sweet is the sleep of the one who works hard, physically hard. He works in the fields, he milks the cows. Have you ever been to a kibbutz? That kind of a life, working in agriculture, is not an easy type of job. But it brings satisfaction. You've worked with your own hands, you've planted, you've done something physically, and you enjoy it. And you see the reward. You see your plants growing, the crop. So he says, "Metuka shnat haoved." He works early in the morning till late in the evening, but it's sweet. When he goes to sleep, it's sweet for him. The sleep is sweet. Whether it's little or a lot that he eats in the end, depending on how much he grows. But look at the guy who's wealthy. V'asava le'ashir, that satisfaction that the wealthy man will have from having so much money, eneno maniach lo lishon. All that sava, all that satisfaction, the money, the wealth, will not allow him to sleep. Sleeping pills he needs. Why? The sleep of the hard-working man is sweet, and the wealthy man has no sleep. The reason is because the wealthy man has many worries. Because he has so much money, he's worried about the value of the stock. He's worried about overseas, are they stealing from him? He's not there to see. He's worried about his merchandise, something happening to it. He has a lawsuit now. The wealthier one is, unless he has great mazal, the more troubles, the more problems and issues. So his sleep is not sweet, like the one who's hardworking. He has his job, 9 to 5. He comes home. He eats a normal meal. He's able to sit down and enjoy his family, perhaps. A wealthy man is busy on the phone, late at night sometimes. That's the life. That's the life many, many times of people who have lots of money. So compare. What's better? Why is he telling this to us? What's the importance of all of this? So that people should not have grandiose dreams. Oh, I gotta make it rich. This is the best thing to do. This is important. No, it's not. If it's one's mazal, fine. But don't be jealous of those who have it. Don't aspire to it necessarily. This is not necessarily the best kind of a lifestyle. Look at the differences. And he's going to point out quite a few differences. There was once an individual who owed a lot of money. He took a big debt. And because of this debt, he had a very, very hard time going to sleep at night. Every time he would go to bed, his wife would notice how he's squirming, just can't fall asleep. It's on his mind the whole time. And she felt bad for him, He owes this guy a lot of money. He doesn't know how he's going to pay it back. What do you do? So look what the wife did. The wife picks up the phone. What's the number of that guy you owe money? So he told her. Why? Just wait a minute. She picks up the phone. Mr. So-and-so? Yes. I want to let you know that my husband is never going to pay you what he owes you. That's it. It's done with. Forget about it. And she closed the phone. So the husband was surprised and shocked. He said, why'd you do that? Let him not sleep and you sleep. You sleep. Now you can sleep. Let him not sleep. Obviously.
That's how women act.
Yeah?
Yeah. No justice.
No, it's actually smart.
No, that's
She didn't mean it, of course, that they would never pay the debt. She wanted her husband to go to sleep. Don't worry about it, in other words. I just let him know that you're not paying it. You don't have the money. Eventually she'll pay. They were not those kind of individuals that are not going to pay. Those exist, I agree. But she wanted her husband to just go to sleep and not worry about it. Right? So she told the guy, he's not paying now. That's it. Forget it. So let him worry about it, not her husband. But that's what happens in life, that many, many times the worries, many of the worries and the pressures have to do with what? With money. They're money related. There are, of course, illnesses. There are other troubles too. But many, many times it has to do with money. A very interesting point comes out of this. It may sound a little hard for some of you, but that's the truth. You may know someone who has only lived to the age of 27 or younger. That's it. He lived to 30, he lived to 40, he lived to 45. In other words, he didn't complete the average lifespan of most people. And you feel bad, he died young. When the rabbis approach the subject of dying young, obviously they approach it very carefully. I mean, it's a very, very delicate subject. People, whose child was taken away from them during their lifetime, no matter how old he was, the parents are still alive, it's very, very painful. But the way the Torah sees this is as follows. It does not really matter how many years a person spent here. It's what he did with his time. If an individual spent 40 years in this world, but he accomplished a lot. He got married, he had children, he gave tzedakah, he prayed on a regular basis, he helped people, he was kind, didn't hurt anybody, perhaps managed to write a book too. Those are great accomplishments. He left behind something. The world benefited from him. From some, the world suffers. From him, the world benefited. Does it really matter how many years he was here? Of course, you may say, well, the family, the kids don't have a father, or the kids cannot enjoy their father as much, and the father won't see his grandchildren, chas v'shalom. Yes, of course, but these are emotional things. These are just emotional. I don't say that it doesn't count. Of course it counts. Of course it matters. It would be nice. But if you really look at it logically, from a Torah perspective, what really matters is the quality of life. Not the number of years, the quantity, but the quality. What did he do with a little bit of time that he was here? A person can be here 99 years and have accomplished nothing. He was a burden on people. People are glad to see him go. Finally, they're saying. Yeah, imagine somebody like that. That's terrible. Somebody that didn't contribute, somebody that was just a burden on others. Very difficult person. Or even if he wasn't difficult, he just wasted his time. He didn't do anything, didn't help, didn't participate. What did he accomplish? What a waste. A waste of a lifetime. So what's more important? It's what is done, what is accomplished, versus the amount of time that is spent. Now, as far as reward is concerned, the rabbis tell us that the reward is always according to one's ability, depending on the talent one has, depending on what Hashem has given one. The more money one has, the more it is expected of him to do. If somebody has a nice voice, they expect him to use his voice for something good. Depending on one's abilities, that is what is expected of him. Now, the rabbis remind us of something very important in Pirkei Avot. Lo alecha amelacha ligmor. Don't be discouraged when you are faced with so much work. So much has to be accomplished. Because whoever told you have to do everything? Some people are discouraged. They just give up quickly. Say, I can't do all of that. There's so much mitzvot, there's so much to do, so much to learn. They look at all the books. And who says you have to do everything? Nobody ever said you have to finish. You're not exempt, however, from not doing something. You begin to do as much as you want, as much as you can. And then we'll see what happens. I saw something incredible written in the name of the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim, Zechet Tzaddik Levracha, once expressed himself. In Yiddish it rhymes, it sounds a little bit better. It says, Medaf ton, medaf nicht oft ton. What that means in Yiddish is, one has to do, one does not have to accomplish. You know what the difference between to do and to accomplish? Some people have dreams. Oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to accomplish something. Who ever told you you have to accomplish? Whoever says that you are destined to accomplish something? You may want to try, but you may not succeed. You have to do. Do whatever you can. And of course, if one is blessed and one is able to accomplish a great deal, good for him. But you can't think of it that way. Otherwise, you'll be discouraged if you don't get it, if you don't get to that point. One has to do as much as possible. And the greater hurdles one has and the more struggles one has to accomplish, the greater the reward will be. Two people go to shul, one walks a half an hour, one walks 5 minutes. The one that walks a half an hour obviously will be rewarded a lot more. One comes from a very secular background and he became more observant. Compare him to somebody who came from a religious background and he became, of course, he's religious. Who's going to be more rewarded for the same deed, the same mitzvah? The one who comes from a secular background. He had a more difficult time. He may have had to argue with his parents or siblings, relatives. So he had it more difficult doing this mitzvah. So who's going to be rewarded more? The one who has a harder time. The reward is according to the effort. Okay. Next pasuk, he speaks about something that is very, very tragic, very, very sad. Yesh ra'ah chola. There is a sickness, or there is something which is really bad, which is really sickening. Ra'iti tachat hashamesh, that I've observed under the sun, osher shamur leba'alav lera'ato. That sometimes a person is given wealth to his detriment. It's going to hurt him. This is a very famous pasuk in Kohelet. Osher shamur leba'alav lera'ato. Sometimes money is reserved, shamur, leba'alav, to its owner, lera'ato, to his bad, in other words, to his detriment. In other words, Hashem may give someone, and that money will ultimately hurt this individual. And this can happen either one or two ways. One way, the simple way, is that sometimes a person is given wealth, and because he got wealth, he got himself into trouble. Do you know that quite a few people who won the lottery, their life became more miserable than before? So sometimes money is a curse. Because an individual got money, it ended up being a punishment, if anything, not a blessing. It hurt him. Somehow, it got him into trouble because he made all this money. Whether it was thieves, whether it was the government, whether it was, all kinds of situations that he didn't anticipate. But another situation where it's osher shamur ba'alav lera'ato is quite typical when you're dealing with a rasha gamur, a completely wicked person who may have done one good deed in his life. He was a lifesaver, let's say, at the beach, and he saved a person's life when he was 22 years old. Wow, that's very special, you should know. So he has one good deed to his credit. He never put on tefillin, never kept Shabbat or kosher, never did anything, never helped anybody, never gave tzedakah. But he has one good deed in his record. But he's wicked. You know, he's not a good person. And apparently, you know, he eventually, when he leaves this world, is going to have credit for this one mitzvah. Hashem says, no, I don't want to give him credit upstairs because he's such an evil person. He doesn't do anything right. On the contrary, he does a lot of wrong. I'm going to pay him for that one mitzvah in this world, in this lifetime. For the next 65 years, that's a lot, right? Till his late 80s, he's going to be a very wealthy man. So that wealth is not coming to him as a result of his good mazal. It's not coming to him as a result of some inheritance. Right? There are various forms on how people acquire wealth. There could be a blessing. This money will come to him as a ra, something not good. It's to pay him off. Hashem says, I'm going to pay you off in this world. So when you head upstairs, it's complete gehenom. Or no olam haba, whatever. In other words, you're not going to have it easy up there. Because when a person does some good and some bad, he heads upstairs and they judge him, of course. Sometimes they send you back, reincarnation. You know, the scales are somewhat balanced. There's some good and some bad. So you know, one has to pay for it, one has to clean up, of course, what he did wrong. But eventually he goes to his final resting place to enjoy all the good that he has done. That is why it's called, you know, Olam HaSchar, the world of the reward, Olam HaEmet, Olam Haba, the world to come, the true world, where one hopefully to eternity enjoys the fruit of his labor. But if Hashem pays off somebody here, it's no good. Chaz v'shalom, God forbid, we don't want anybody to be paid off. You know, here's the check, that's it, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Chaz v'shalom. But that's what he's talking about. He says there sometimes is that kind of a wealth that is shamur leba'alav le'ra'ato, and it's not good. What could happen to all this wealth that is not good? Another possibility is the continuation in the next pasuk. It could be that a person goes up, makes a lot of money, and then comes tumbling down. What's worse, being poor or making lots of money and all of a sudden losing all of it?
Being poor.
Losing all of it.
Why losing all of it?
Because you know what it was once like.
Right, it's more painful.
It's not bad. It's better
The
to
higher you are, what is the English saying? The higher you're up, the more painful the fall.
The harder they fall.
The what?
The harder they are, the harder they fall.
The bigger the harder the fall. Now, what does that mean? According to our tradition, before Mashiach comes, there will be financial troubles in the world. Like we see today somewhat. It may get worse. Chaz v'shalom. Right before that, the standard of living will be very, very high. So my question is, what is this poverty or this financial crisis going to do? Well, it's going to do a lot as far as atonement is concerned. Because had there been a financial crisis when the majority of Am Yisrael was poor like they were in the 19th century, they wouldn't have felt the difference. We were poor then, a little bit poorer. When you elevate people, you raise the standard of living, and people enjoy themselves like they did since World War II. From 1950 to the mid-1980s, people made a lot of money in this country. In real estate, in stock, in businesses. Really, those were very good years. Whoever who's been around knows what I'm talking about. Of course, some people more than others, depending on their mazal. And now, everything comes crashing down. It's very possible that that's the link, that's the connection. In order to feel the pain of poverty, of crisis, of financial crisis, one has had to be comfortable. One has had to have been on top to feel it, to feel the pain. Otherwise, you know, if people were poor, they were poor. So it's very painful to lose what you had. So it can happen, Shlomo Melech says, "Ve'avada osher hahu be'inyan ra," that all that wealth can be lost in a very, very bad way. For example, he says, "Ve'olid ben," he may give birth to a child, Ve'en beyado me'uma, and that child will have nothing. So here he wants to leave over to his child, and the money is lost before he can give it over. Or it could mean something else, that that child is the one that's responsible for throwing away all that money. Because we don't have control what the children will do with the money we give them. They have their own mazal, they have their own head. So here's a father who worked hard for his money. Leaves it over to his child, millions of dollars, and the child squanders it, wastes it. It has happened in Vegas or in attorneys, kids fight. So look at all that hard money, hard-earned money, going to waste. There's nothing left. One of the worst, however, scenarios is the following story that happened in my presence almost. This story goes back 25 years or so. An older person comes to see me, to seek my advice. Says, Rabbi, I have a big problem. Thank God I succeeded in life, I made some money, I bought some property, and I have a daughter, and I wrote to her in a deed that I prepared that I transfer everything to her. I gift it to her, or whatever, I will it to her. Not after my death, but as of now. And because I gave her everything and put everything in her name, one day she came with her husband and told me to get out of the house. Scram, as they say in English. Get lost. His own daughter told him to get lost, to leave the house. Now, can you imagine giving everything to a child and the child doing this to the parent? I mean, I wish I could speak to the child and, of course, hear their side of the story. But I'm not completely surprised. That's why I didn't even have to bother. And I felt bad for him. And I said, well, wait a minute, why did you do something so stupid to give in your life? He says, why should I suspect? And he's right. Why should I suspect anything like this? He says, at least you should have just left your house under your name. The other money, well, who cares about money? Money comes, money goes. He says, he admitted, he made a mistake. But now what? He says, now, try to form a good relationship with her. Don't sue her. I think he was trying to sue her, if I remember, taking her to court or something. I don't know what he was going to do. But he's really almost out of luck. Almost, I think, out of luck. You don't do these kind of things. The rabbis tell us not to do these things. You know, otherwise, look what happens. Parent loves his children, but the child, when they get married, there's somebody else involved who doesn't have that same love for the parent as the parent has for the child. It's just common sense. Especially, the rabbis tell us, and Shlomo Melech tells us in his book Mishlei, that any money that was earned shelo b'mishpat b'chatzi yamav yazvenu, wealth that was earned illegally, it will be lost halfway through his life. In other words, we're talking about losing money here, especially if it's illegal money. Money that was earned in illegal ways that has no beracha. Money that was earned on Shabbat has no beracha. There are certain types of money that were earned that don't have a beracha. So eventually it will be lost. It will go away at some point in one's life. Let me share with you a cute story of the opposite, of a smart father who knew what he was doing, but the son didn't know until he was told later by the rabbi. I think this story happened in South Africa. This wealthy man was far away from his hometown, and he realized his days were numbered. So he quickly decided to write a will. He calls over his servant, his slave or servant, who was with him, his helper, and he says, listen, my son is not aware of my situation. Those days there were no phones, there's no fax, no emails or nothing. I'm going to make you a messenger. What's the mission? What's the message here? I'm giving everything to you, and just one item for my son, from all that I own. Thank you very much, boss. You know, who wouldn't be happy? His servant, his worker, is getting all the money, And his son is allowed to choose just one item. He can choose the car. I mean, he can choose, I don't know, whatever, a jewel. He says, I give everything to you, but my son, let him choose just one thing. He's my son, after all. Yes, I'll take care of it for you. Takes all the cash, takes the will, takes the jewelry, whatever he had. I think he went to either London or he went to Vilna, one of those cities all the way north. He looks up the son, and the father passed away. He looks up the son, and he finds him, meets up with him, tells him the bad news, and he says, but your dad left behind the will. He says, well, besides the will, where's all the money? He says, I have it, I brought it, don't worry about it, but you have to follow the instructions of the will. He says, let me see. And he sees his father's handwriting. It wasn't a fake. But he couldn't believe his eyes. This guy gets everything? Who is he? And he only gets to choose one item? He says, he didn't know his father to be like that. This was not a cruel father. This is a loving son. You have all kinds of relationships, but this was not it. He says, this is impossible. He says, I don't agree with it. I'm going to take you to Bet Din. So they agreed to go to a Bet Din. And Baruch Hashem, the rabbi of that Bet Din was a very sharp individual, smart, and understood this kind of thing, these kind of situations very well, and takes a look at the deed, reads it over very carefully. And he says, my decision is, what do you think he's going to say?
Reverse.
Huh?
Reverse.
You gotta do what the will says.
Well, what is his decision going to be?
You gotta do what the will says.
I'm going to say that my whole segment.
Okay. Let me tell you what happened right before the decision was made, and then you will understand it a little bit better. Before the decision was made, he goes over to the son and tells him privately, my suggestion to you is that the one item that you choose is the servant. Okay, now you'll be interested. So when they came back into court, okay, my decision is that you follow exactly what the will says, and you, son, choose only one item. I choose the servant. Once he chose the servant, whatever belongs to the servant belongs to him. The father was smart. Had the father said, give everything to my son, the guy would not have gone to his son. He would have kept everything for himself. The father was about to die. He would have never told the son anything. He said, how do I get all this money to my son? So he had to think of a trick. And he hoped that this rabbi would understand, and he did. Because that's the halakha, that whatever belongs to the slave, the servant, belongs to you. So that was a smart father. All right, next pasuk. The way a baby comes out of his mother's womb naked, that's the way we leave this world. We came with nothing, we leave with nothing. Nothing will he carry with him from all the hard work that he invested in this world. Because the way you come, that's the way you leave. The rabbis emphasize this a drop more by telling us that a baby, when he enters this world, enters with his hands clenched. He wants to grab everything. That's the nature of a baby. That's the nature of a human being. When he's alive, to acquire, to want more. When we leave, our hands are stretched out like that, because we don't take anything. So here we're coming with our hands closed, the fists closed, but we're leaving with our hands open. So that's what he's saying over here. Remember, the same way we arrived, that's the way we leave. There's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful mashal, parable, that describes this point. There was once a fox, the Midrash says, that approached a vineyard and wanted to get in to eat grapes, and it noticed that there was a little hole. But it doesn't fit, it can't fit into the hole. So what did it do? It fasted. This fox fasted for 3 days. He fasted for 3 days and he was able to get in. And Baruch Hashem got in and he ate a lot of grapes and he became fat again. Now he can't get out. So what did he do? He fasted again and he got out. So he went in skinny, he went out skinny, and he takes a look at the grapes and at the vine. He says, what good were you? I came in hungry and I left hungry. What good did you do me? Nothing. But that's the mashal of olam hazeh. In other words, we want to fit in, we want to acquire, we work so hard and we become hungry and tired just to get some grapes, and then we leave. We leave hungry. We don't take it with us. We have to leave the same way we came. Very nice mashal. How do we preserve? How are we able to preserve what we earned over here? Another story, famous story of a advisor to a king. He was a Jewish advisor, and as you know, in the past, many times Jewish advisors had trouble from other goyim who envied them, envied their position, and so forth, envied their chokhmah, their intelligence, and they tried as best as possible to convince the king that he's been robbing from the treasury, he's been making himself rich, al cheshbon ha-melucha, it was an account of the kingdom, and it was he's basically a thief. And the king would never buy these stories. He was good friends with the advisor, but little by little, they tried to convince him, and at some point they asked the king, you know what, king, what do you care? Why don't you make an audit and see for yourself? You don't believe us? Fine, make an audit. Ask him to show you what he has, and you'll see all that he has. That he couldn't refuse. And he calls over the advisor and says, you know what, I want an audit. I want to know exactly what you own. Tell me all the properties, everything that you have under your name. I give you 3 days to write it down. I'm sorry, I got to do this. So he comes back after 3 days with a small piece of paper where he wrote what he has. The king takes a look at it and he says, why are you lying to me? I'm your friend. I myself know you have much more than this. What's this? You making fun of me? She says, dear king, your honor, you don't understand. What you think I have is really not mine. You see, what I wrote down on this piece of paper is only the money that I've given to charity. Here you see sums of money that I've over my life given to charity. That is secure. That is in a place where nobody can touch. What you think I have, properties, buildings, and homes, that's not secure. You can take it away from me. Somebody can steal it from me. I did not write down assets that can be taken from me. I only wrote down true assets, that which can never be taken from me. That is in a very safe place upstairs. The king, of course, smiled and agreed that that was very, very true and smart of him to do. And of course, let him go. Very nice, very true. Those are our true assets. That is what we preserve. That is what we take with us. The money, what are you going to do with all of it? Okay, then he goes on, the next pasuk. Let's assume that he did keep his money. He says like this, V'gam zu ra'a chola, also this is also sick, and vain and bad. Kol umat sheba ken yelech u'ma yitron lo sheyamol laruach. Let's say he did keep what he made. Nothing happened to it, he didn't lose. How did all that benefit? Sheyamol laruach, it's like working for the wind. Blowing air. Imagine somebody that works a whole year and just covers his expenses. Did he make a profit? No. He covered his expenses. So you might think, okay, that's great, I covered my expenses. Okay, if it happens for a month or two, it's better than nothing. But what if an entire lifetime went by, a person never made a profit? All he did was cover his expenses. All that hard work. That's what he says over here. Even if you are able to retain and to keep, and no losses were experienced, what did you benefit from it? That you just work in vain and you work for nothing. Is that what life is all about? Is just work, physical work, making money? It doesn't make sense. That's also called a loss, especially when a person heads upstairs and they're going to ask him, where are all your mitzvot and ma'asim tovim? That's what you need upstairs. For the neshama to be in its final resting place, for the neshama to be happy where it is, it has to come with some credit, with some ticket. That he doesn't have, because I was working. You were working. What you get from, what came out of all that working? where your neshama right now needs all the credit it can get. That you don't have. Imagine people who really, really work hard. They really work hard. They sweat and they toil and they come home late hours. What a hard life. And they don't have any mitzvot. They don't have no olam hazeh and no olam haba. What a waste. You know, at least if you had one of the two, you enjoyed your life. All right. But you're working so hard and you don't really enjoy it. And no olam haba either. No tefillah, no prayer, no mitzvot, no tzitzit, no mezuzah, no tefillin. What a waste of not having neither. And that's what he says happens when people just work many times for no reason. In other words, for no real benefit. Next pasuk. These are all descriptions. This is all one topic, talking about wealth, accumulation of money, and benefits and the losses that come as a result of that. All his days are in darkness. What that means is that people have ups and downs. It's not always, we don't have good times all the time. And as a result of all kinds of business dealings, there may be many times where one gets aggravated and upset and people make him angry, or clients don't pay their bills. That happens. And they become sick and they get heart attacks and all kinds of illnesses and all kinds of ketzev, frustrations and stress, which affects their marriages too. He says, look what's going on in the big world. This is the picture he describes as, has anything changed from that time? I think it's the same world. You know, we have different maybe equipment today, the technology, but people are affected in a very similar way as a result of their work. And this is all in the pursuit of money, career, jobs, right? And why do people do this? Why do people work so hard? Because they do think deep down that one day they're going to enjoy this. That one day they're going to benefit, they're going to use all that money. That day never comes. As I've told you in the past, there are individuals who are looking forward to retirement. And they never made it. At 59, they died. Or they just retired and 2 weeks later they died. Have you heard of people like that? Yeah. All the time. They had all of these grand plans. I'm going to play golf, go around the world, spend more time with my kids or grandkids. Never came to it. Because people don't know that time that they're going to leave. Enjoy life while you can. The number of years that you have, enjoy it in a good way. Don't push it off. If it's something is important to us now, we do it now. We don't push it off to later. That later may never come. Then there's a sickness that he doesn't say clearly. He doesn't give it a name, but it's a sickness that we're all familiar. And that's being a miser. A miser is worse than someone who's stingy. A stingy man is one who does not like to share his wealth with others. He doesn't lend money, doesn't give money. Right? That's the chasis version. Then you have the tama. Right? That's the miser, right? One who doesn't even enjoy it himself. That's even worse. That's a sickness. That's why he uses the word, v'cholyo, he uses the word sickness. What sickness? The sickness where people don't enjoy and they can enjoy. Chaval, what a shame for him not to be able to enjoy it. What for? What are you going to do with it? That's a sickness. There's no other explanation for it. So what should one do? He says this is what he advises. I therefore recommend that a person eat and drink and try to make the best out of his amal, out of whatever salary he has. Take your kids to the park. You can't afford it too often, once a week. Do whatever you can with the little bit you have and eat and drink. In other words, don't overdo it, but enjoy. The little bit that you have, that's from Shamayim. What are you going to save it for a rainy day? I mean, you want to enjoy it now too. That rainy day, who knows what's going to happen later. Because one does not know the number of days that Hashem has given him, but we do know that whatever number that is, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, that's his chelik. Hashem has given us a chelik, enjoy it. Don't deprive yourself. Don't, of course, overdo it in pleasures and so forth, but enjoy life in a normal way. He says that's the best advice I can give people who are struggling, people who are going through ups and downs, people who are working hard. He says, the little bit that you do have, as long as it's reasonable, enjoy. Enjoy, because you don't know how many years you'll have it. In the next pasuk, he goes a little bit deeper and he says as follows: "Gam kol ha'adam asher natan lo Elohim osher u'nechasim v'ishlito lechol mimeno v'lasset et chelko b'tzmo v'amalo zu matat Elohim hi." And you should know, any individual who Hashem has given him wealth and properties and has given him the control to use it, to eat from it, and to carry his chelek, in other words, to enjoy it, v'lismoach b'amalo, and to be happy with all his work, you should know, zo matat Elohim hi. It's a gift from Shamayim. In other words, if you do notice an individual who's wealthy and who does have a good life and an easy life, he's the minority, he's the exception. Why? Because as the rabbis tell us in their language, lo kol adam zoche leshnei shulchanot. Not everybody has the merit to have two tables. Two tables means to be intelligent, to be very religious, and to have lots of money, and to have good kids, to have everything good in one's life. Imagine the greatest wife, the best kids, all the money. That's called shnei shulchanot. Most people don't have that. You have a lot of money, you may not have the best wife. I hope you do, B'ezrat Hashem, right? You have a good wife, you may not have so much money. You have a good wife and you have money, you may not have the best kids. You have good kids, right? You may not have the best boss or the best job, right? Not everybody is zoche l'shnei shulchanot. So therefore he says, if you observe an individual who does have a good life and does have everything going well for him, more or less, you should know it's matat Elokim hi. It is a gift from Hashem, and of course it has something to do with mazal. There are people, of course, who are blessed. There's a special blessing. You know, they got a blessing for doing something incredibly good. But that's very limited to something specific. They were blessed with a child. They were blessed with twins. They were blessed with money. Very specific sometime in their life. But from the very beginning, as soon as he gets married, from his youth till old age, everything went well for him. That's very rare. Not everybody gets that kind of a life. So if you notice that, that's a gift from Hashem. One of the points that is not so clear, but is also understood here, is that it's very important for a person to teach himself, to train himself to live modestly, and everything in moderation. Be happy and content with what you have and live according to your means. That's not the American way. You know what the American way is. You buy it now and pay for it later. The famous credit cards. And these credit card businesses here in this country have gotten people to used to living above their means. And that's why people are bankrupt today. That's one of the reasons. They got used to living above their means. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. Don't take a chance. Oh, I'm going to pay for it later. No, if you don't have the money right now in the bank account, don't buy it. The only exception to this rule really is a home where we take a mortgage. I don't think most people can afford to put down $1 million. Today the homes are expensive. So we have no choice. But a car, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. And if you can only afford the 1996, based on what the money you have, then buy a 1996. What's wrong with that? No. What are they going to say? What's the neighbor going to say? What's my community going to say? All kinds of shtuyot, all kinds of reasonings that don't. Because of that, you got to get yourself into trouble and choke. You know, they ask you when you fill out the mortgage application, they ask you for your expenses. Utilities, that's normal. Gas, whatever it is. Property taxes, how much is your insurance? Everybody has that. How much are your leases of the car? How much do you own the car? Of course, Baruch Hashem, I've always said nothing. Zero. You don't owe anything on the car? No, why should I? No, everybody owes on their car. No, that's only if you buy a new car, maybe. Who says you have to buy a new car? So they have this debt on this car, this debt on their wife's car, and other personal debts and leases. Chaval. People are living beyond what their true means. So this point is very, very much emphasized in the Gemara, in Pirkei Avot, is atznea, as the Navi says, atznea lechet. Be very modest in your ways, in the way you conduct yourself, the way you live with Hashem. It's not right for a person to live and then you have individuals who borrow money, from others, for some expense to make a wedding or a big bar mitzvah, and they don't pay it. You can't afford it, don't make it. Make it in your backyard. You have people borrowing money from others and not paying them. That's a terrible thing to do. And then, by the way, after the bar mitzvah that they made, they go to Hawaii. How could you go to Hawaii on vacation when you still owe money to an individual? How do you justify it? You see, it's stealing. First thing is pay up your debts. These are not individuals who will understand or follow what he says. Live only according to your means. Live modestly. Especially if you don't have. If you don't have, what right does that give you to do that? How do we recognize if somebody has a beracha? Somebody has millions of dollars in his bank. How do you know it's a beracha? How do you know it's not a beracha? Is there any way that you know? There are several ways you can know if money is a beracha. One, if he ends up using his money for doing a lot of good things. You see that this individual, throughout his life, Baruch Hashem, somehow, that money that he has was used for great causes. He built a hospital, he did this, he did that. You see through his accomplishments and good deeds that the money went to a good cause. That money is beracha. Another way to tell is if the money that he has stays several generations in the family. If the great-grandfather was wealthy and so was the grandson, so was the son, so was his children, like the Rothschild family, you know that the original Rothschild, received some sort of blessing. We don't know for how many generations, but it could last for a long time. So when you see money going over from generation to generation without it being lost and squandered, that's beracha. Because most cases, the father had great mazal, doesn't mean the son will have great mazal. Maybe if it's millions of dollars and the kids don't fight, so at least so it's inherited. But the grandchildren will not have it anymore. Something will happen to it. You cannot have such great mazal for 3 generations. But if it's beracha, you could have it. Another idea behind wealth that is a beracha is a verse in Mishlei that tells us Birchat Hashem hi ta'ashir v'lo yusif etze bima. If it's a beracha from Hashem, a person will never have any worries with his money. There will be no sadness, no worries. There's no etziv. If it's a beracha of Hashem that makes a person wealthy, he doesn't have any worries. He doesn't have any problems. People that have problems as a result of their money, it could be it's just their mazal. And they don't have that kind of a mazal of having wealth and no troubles whatsoever. You want the wealth, you're going to have the problems too that come with it. So not to have problems is also beracha. The last pasuk of the perek says as follows: Ki lo harbe yizkor et yemei chayav ki Elohim ma'aneh b'simchat libo. People will not usually focus on the length of the life. They don't know how long they will live. They don't realize that time is short and time is running. Ki Elohim ma'aneh b'simchat libo. And Hashem is the one that is responsible for gladdening somebody's heart. This pasuk has various interpretations. Everything is from Hashem. We know that. But sometimes people think that they are the ones that are responsible for making all that money. If a person has that kind of an attitude, that kind of a thinking, he's committing a sin. It shows arrogance. So a person sometimes does not realize, because he's so hard, he's working, because he's spending so much time in his job, and because he's making so much money, he doesn't realize that the time is going by, he's completely distracted, and before you know it, it's time to leave. As a result of all of this work, as a result of all of this lack of focus in the time, people do not think properly. People do not think right. People make mistakes of all kinds. People start making all kinds of cheshbonot. In other words, oh, Baruch Hashem, I'm able to afford this, I'm able to afford this. Okay, I'll give you, go buy yourself a new car, go build yourself a new home. People don't make the proper cheshbonot. Wait a minute. Hashem blessed you. Why don't you do things a little bit differently? Maybe you won't have all that money tomorrow. Don't assume that you're going to have what you have now to have tomorrow. Have you seen these people that burn dollar bills to smoke it? It's like they have all the money to burn, right? It shows a lack of respect or understanding, I should say, for not only the value of money but the value of time. What will happen tomorrow? Tomorrow you may wish you had all those bills you burnt. People don't realize it. In the olden days, it was very easy for someone to lose all his money at once. Today, people don't see it happening. And if I did not tell you the story, I'm going to share with you the story that happened with my grandfather in South Africa. Incredible story that says a lot. He was there with the rabbi of Panovich, and somebody approached that Rabbi Panovich. Rabbi, I don't understand what I say every day in the morning, right before the prayer, the Amidah, Mashpil Geim Ade Aretz, Magbiah Shefalid Mad Marom, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can bring down those who are on top just like that, in one instant. And he can raise those who are on the bottom in one instant. Rabbi, I don't understand how one instant is possible. You see, I'm a very successful businessman, he says. I have a very big factory here in South Africa. If Hashem takes this away from me, if it burns down or something, I have real estate in Manhattan. And if something happens to the real estate in Manhattan, I have bank accounts in Switzerland. You mean to say Hashem can take all of this in one instant? The rabbi turns to him, no. Hashem doesn't have to take all of that from you in one instant. He can take you away from all that in one instant. Then what are you going to be left with? 2 days later, the man died. That was what was frightening. He actually died 2 days later. How could a person think like that, talk like that? Only because of gava, arrogance. The arrogance comes from making so much money. And from not thinking, simply not thinking that everything is from above. I want to finish with the following story of an individual who did think, who did not fall into this trap. He was a Rothschild too, very wealthy, successful banker, religious individual. People used to come to him to collect for yeshivot, but he had a strange custom that nobody understood and he didn't explain. Once a day, he would lock himself up in a very, very private room that not even the maid had the keys to. And he would spend some 20 minutes to a half an hour there. Nobody knew when he did that. And the word spread that he's in this private room every day. Nobody knows what it is. He doesn't let anybody in. One day the rabbi came, a rabbi to collect, and the rabbi says, listen, let's forget about money right now. Please show me that room. I want to know what's going on in that room. What do you do there? He says, Rabbi, I'll only do it for you on one condition, that you don't tell anybody until after my passing. Don't worry, secret between me and you. All right. Opens up the door, they go into the room, and the rabbi sees in front of him a coffin. So of course he's a little bit shaken. Coffin? What's this coffin in here? Did you kill someone or what? A coffin. And he sees shrouds on top of the coffin, shrouds which what you cover the dead person, a talit, a ner neshama, a candle for those who have left this world, and a tehillim. He says, Rabbi, you see all this? Every day I come in here and I spend about a half an hour looking at all of this and thinking that one day they're going to take off my expensive suit and they're going to dress me up with this linen, tachrichim. They're going to bury me in this coffin, covered with a talit, light a candle for my neshama, and say Tehillim. And believe me, after I leave this room, after a half an hour being there, I'm a totally changed man. Very, very different. Very humble. This is good medicine for me. I need it. With all that money that I have, and with all that I do, and all the success, this does wonders to me. Smart man. This is something that most people do not do and should do. And they can do this, not necessarily by putting a coffin in their bedroom, and the wife won't let, right? But by learning Musar. Learn Musar, learn Kohelet, learn Mishlei. Learn all these books that remind us where we headed, how much time we have, how much time we don't have, right? And focus on the right things. Don't be easily distracted by the Yetzer, which is what happens. Realize that everything is min hashamayim, right? And therefore, make the best of your situation. Live modestly, be happy with what you have, don't overdo it, right? Emphasize the right things. And since we don't always know what is right from what is wrong, we have to learn. Don't remain an ignoramus. Unfortunately, the reality is that many, many people, too many people don't do this. You ask, go out, ask as many Jews as you want, and non-Jews. How many have learned Kohelet? All of it. I don't think you'll find too many. Maybe 1 in 10,000, and I'm not exaggerating. A little bit of Kohelet they've seen in the Gemara, they've seen Pesukim. It's a very important book. We only covered half of it almost. And you see, for those of you who have been there from the beginning, that he discusses the facts of life. As an observer, as a smart individual, he only lived to the age of 52. Look how much he saw and how much he wants to share with us. He says, don't make mistakes that other people make. But the problem is, he says, En chadash tachat hashamesh, there's nothing new under the sun. People will still make the same mistake. But why? Because they don't learn, they don't want to learn, they don't care. What a shame, what a waste. In other words, a person can really succeed in life, not by accumulating a lot of money, but simply by doing the right things, by making the right choices. And that can only come about if he learns. So Baruch Hashem, we're learning a little bit, and we're going to learn more, and we're going to see the incredible wisdom of Salomon Melech. But it's not really his wisdom, this is the wisdom of the Torah. The Torah says all of this in various words. He just puts it into life, into the scenes of life that we're familiar with. And as we've seen in this, the last portion of this chapter, about the example of a wealthy man, what he goes through. And the reason he spends so many pesukim on this is because many people fall into this trap, because money is a big magnet. It attracts. People are willing to kill for it, steal for it. Money, 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 money. What drives this world? Money, and one more thing that I'd rather not say in public, what goes on in Hollywood, in the movies, right? You know what I mean, right? There's some things that just drive this world crazy. And that is why the Jewish nation, of course, has all the mitzvot that they do to keep us apart from all of that, to safeguard us from all of that. It's all to our benefit, so we don't fall into this trap. But still, even people who are observant and religious, they still make those mistakes. They still, because they don't learn, they don't pay attention, they don't open their eyes, and before you know it, the time is over. And they're getting sick, and they're getting tired, and they're getting frustrated, and they're getting heart attacks, and they're getting upset and mad at what? At something silly? Something you should never get upset about? After all, there's something mazal that controls, but they don't know. They don't know. They really think that if they work harder, they'll take a second job. Spend time with your family, that's more important. You have less money, so live with whatever you have. You don't have that much, buy a used car. Who ever said that? In which book is it written to buy a new car? Why? Then the wisecrackers will come and tell you, no, I'll tell you why a new car. You won't have problems with it for the next 2 years. It's all covered. That makes some sense. There is logic to that, but is it still worth it? To get into debt? So you don't have this worry, you have that worry, the debt. You see what I mean? Think of it really. It's all Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara works very, very hard. The way to defeat that Yetzer Hara, of course, is to become knowledgeable. The greatest enemy of man is ignorance. Ignorance is the greatest enemy. He doesn't know. He jumps into a pool, he doesn't know how to swim. Or he thinks it's only 3 foot and it's 9 foot deep. He's going to drown. I mean, people do all kinds of things without realizing the consequences. There's, of course, other situations that we're going to get into B'ezrat Hashem 3 weeks from now. The next 2 weeks, I don't think there will be a shiur here. I'll be out of town. So B'ezrat Hashem, 3 weeks from now, we're going to come back together and continue on from Perek Vav. Thank you.
Baruch.